told Harold, I'm sorry, but she's gone.
Park rangers recovering the body of a woman who fell to her death while hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Did you realize at that point that your mother was dead?
I love you.
I don't think anybody normal is okay after the passing of their mom, and I certainly wasn't.
Toni's camera was destroyed, but the SD card was still intact. These are the last moments of Toni Henthorn's life.
How important were these pictures in piecing together your investigation?
There's a photo of Toni and Harold sitting where I'm standing.
She kind of tumbled down the rock face.
When you saw the autopsy report, what did you think?
I was taken aback by the size of her head wound.
That's when I felt like something's not right here.
I filed it as undetermined. Homicide cannot be entirely excluded.
Oh my gosh.
Hello again. Hello, Penny.
You've never told your story before.
I haven't.
Let's start at the very beginning.
We love you. Oh, we love you.
I remember my mom. She was amazing. She was so intelligent and so wise and eloquent.
Do you remember your parents' anniversary that day that they went on that surprise trip?
I definitely knew that something was wrong. Everyone was acting so weird to me, and I didn't know what was happening.
Were you scared?
Absolutely.
Hello, my name is Harold Henthorn. I'm in the Rocky Mountain National Park.
Okay.
My wife had fallen from a rock on the north south summit of Deer Mountain when she's in really critical condition.
Every year on their anniversary, Harold would plan a trip with Toni. Typically, a phone would ring, "Hey, Lee, this is Harold. Toni and I are going to go on this little honeymoon trip. Could you take care of Haley for the weekend?" "Sure."
They were about to have their 12th anniversary. He was going to surprise her. She was just going to be overwhelmed. She was going to love it.
The Henthorns live just outside of Denver. Toni is an ophthalmologist, and Harold is a fundraiser. After dropping their 7-year-old daughter, Haley, at a neighbor's house, they leave for a weekend at Rocky Mountain National Park.
I ended up texting Dr. Henthorn just to say congratulations, have a great weekend, be safe, have a great time, see you Monday. And I never heard back from her.
I need an Alpine mountain rescue team immediately.
I already have rangers getting ready to come up there.
We got the call about 6 o'clock of an accident on Deer Ridge Mountain. My primary concern was finding where the patient was quickly. I'd only been hiking 30 minutes when I heard radio traffic.
They tell me you need some assistance doing some CPR. What have you been doing so far?
Good compressions.
Henthorn was performing CPR.
Good compressions and stop.
It made me realize that this was probably not going to have a good ending. As I got closer, I started blowing my whistle, and Henthorn also had a whistle, and he responded. As I approached, she was laying on her back, and her head was wrapped. It was obvious she had a head wound. Her eyes were partially open, and I evaluated her for a pulse and respirations. I told Harold, I'm sorry, but she's gone.
How did you find out something happened to your sister?
There was a series of text messages saying Toni had been involved in an accident, and then things were critical.
The first call we got from Barry, he said that Toni had an accident and she was in serious condition and it didn't look good. Of course, we prayed that God would intervene and save Toni. And then he called back and said that she was gone. 3 horrible words.
What was Toni like growing up?
She was very athletic, and she really excelled, and she was very, very smart, at the top of her class.
Toni always wanted to be a medical doctor. She felt like ophthalmology would basically allow her to do what she loved and give her some downtime and some family time.
She was married pretty young. Someone she'd met in medical school, he was a dentist.
But ultimately, it ended up in a divorce, and to have a failed marriage and have that disappointment, I don't think she ever really accepted that.
I think that she went through a period where she had to, recollect herself. She did pour herself into her medical practice.
She also began spending a lot of time at her church. She especially loved singing in the choir.
The clock, unfortunately, was ticking for her. The divorce had set her back, and she wasn't meeting the kind of people she apparently wanted to meet in Mississippi.
I was pretty shocked one day when Toni and I were having a conversation, and she just outright said, I met a guy online, this guy named Harold.
When he was wooing her online, some of the things that they talked about was that they both wanted children. It's a Christian dating site, so they were both Christian.
Harold raises money specifically for nonprofits.
And if you've just met him, you already know that he has made himself a fortune doing this.
I'm curious what you guys thought of Harold when you first met him.
When you first meet Harold, you are very impressed. He does come across as polite, he's cordial, he's very engaging.
He always had a plan, very much a person in control.
They got engaged in February and got married in September. They didn't see each other but 6 or 7 times during that whole period.
And there's the groom.
Here we go. 1, 2, right here. Bingo. All right, Captain.
The wedding day for Toni and Harold was just beautiful. Toni was just stunning.
Mr. and Mrs. Harold Henthorn.
So Harold and Toni, 2 years after they get married, are leaving Mississippi.
It's so pretty, isn't it?
Apparently, he always wanted to go to Colorado. He always wanted to bring Toni there.
So she sells her practice in Mississippi, and they move to a suburb just outside Denver called Highlands Ranch.
They wanted children right away. Both of them did. She was in her mid-40s when she got pregnant with Haley. So she got her dream.
That's right. We will. We promise. We will. We promise.
From the outside looking in, Toni and Harold's marriage looked ideal. It certainly looks like the perfect life.
We love you. Oh, we love you.
Park rangers recovering the body of a woman who fell to her death while hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park. Authorities say that victim was from Littleton. She was in her 50s. She'd been hiking in the area with a family member.
Now we have a fatality investigation we have to conduct. And the first thing we want to do is document the scene.
There's a tree that on one side, the branches had been kind of knocked off or broken off. I called the impact tree. I mean, you could see that was in a place where I imagine Toni probably impacted as she fell to the ground. There were small things that didn't totally add up. It was an obscure area, not a place where I would expect your average hiker to just happen across because it was just so steep. I noticed there's a shoe that was there, an untied boot. Usually, in the course of a fall, shoes tend not to untie themselves.
And there was a really key piece of evidence. Toni's camera was destroyed, but the SD card was still intact. We were able to look at the photos, and these pictures are very important to us because these are the last moments of Toni Henthorn's life.